bum phone.
Hit it! Give me them bum phones.
Cold in the bum phones.
Wait, so are we going?
We going, son.
We rocking and rolling?
Boy. Oh, yeah. Oh, Dom.
What up, punks?
Punks.
Welcome back.
Dom. Get to the raver.
Nice.
Grubs.
Oh, God. See, no,
Nice.
my reaction is just to go right in for it now. I got to get used to the
It's
new,
all good.
the new configuration.
Gotta be comfy.
New year, new punks, baby.
New year, new respect.
So, yeah, speaking of
Son.
punks, what up, punks? Thanks for coming back for another episode. Another cute little conversation with the
Cute
pop culture
little
punks.
Nice. I like it. Cute
Where
little
we bring
combo.
pop culture to the punks. The punks being you.
The people.
The people, the punks, or just to your little eardrums. I'm your host, Phil, and across from me is your boy,
Joshua.
That he is. This week we'll be taking a look at the Gears of War series.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3. We're skipping 4 this time because,
Just
not going to lie, we're a little burnt out.
we are
and
hardcore burnt out.
because 5 comes out this year, so we'll tack those 2 on because they're kind of
They're more modern.
they're a new thing.
Yeah.
They're more modern, new story, kind of new thing. I haven't played 4 yet, but yeah, we're talking about 1 through 3. And yeah, I don't have a lot more than that to start us off with there. I don't have a little run through like I normally do
A
because
little run through.
this is a very serious conversation.
Yes.
So, you got any recommendations of stuff you've been watching, listening to this week?
So we've decided that we're gonna try and be more. How should we say it? We're changing the name. We're being efficient with our.
It's not updates.
So it's not updates
recommendations
anymore. It's
yeah.
pop culture recommendations.
It's
So
very
these are
slight difference.
specifically
You probably won't notice a
Yes,
difference. But
yes.
You will in the end.
in the end, but it doesn't even matter.
A little bit less discussion-y, hopefully.
We keep trying,
even
so
though we're
hard.
discussing the concept of it being less discussion-y, the thing itself will be less discussion-y.
Boom.
How much more can we say discussion-y? And by we, I mean me. So, what do you recommend?
Probably not. What am I recommending this week? So, per your recommendation, I actually went. What was it? Last Wednesday we had it was like a snow day. It is freaking cold. So we're based out of Madison, Wisconsin. It is cold as nads out there, dude. Like,
Yeah, and it doesn't help that your heat is
my heat is busted.
I'm
in our
wearing a
apartment.
winter jacket.
He's
here.
literally
I'm
and
bundled
his,
up.
like-
I got a beanie on. Well, that's normal, and I also got
Right?
a winter jacket on.
Yeah, I've got I should put my hood up. That might make me feel warmer.
My dogs are chilly though.
My dogs are chilly.
My feet are just
My tootsies, your
My
tootsies,
tootsies.
little tootsies.
What up,
are called.
tootsies?
What up, tootsies? No, dude, it is cold as nads out here. So, the heat in our apartment isn't working, and it's the weekend, so we can't. We didn't feel right calling the emergency maintenance people.
See, that's the funny thing is because yesterday our pipes were frozen,
Oh.
and we were filling out a maintenance request just like
Yeah.
preemptively because. Granted,
like, I know
this
we're
morning
gonna-
they
I
were
know we're
back.
gonna have
They
to.
were back.
Right.
They were back in action, but we were filling it out, and I was like, "Do you deem this to be like in emergency?" And we looked at each other. We're like, "Is it? I don't know. Like,
I don't know.
You could argue.
define-
You could argue
yeah,
the
it's
way or
like-
the other. But then the next question was like, "Is this a threat to your safety?" And we're like, "No."
It's
Dang
like,
it.
no, shoot.
But luckily it's back up. So.
Yeah. So we had my wife had a snow day and it was nasty out. So I'm fortunate enough that I get to work remotely. So I was working remotely. So I was just like, we're gonna choose through some new music. So I did end up listening to Toxicity by System of a Down.
Yeah, you did.
The funny thing is I've never liked System of a Down. I think mainly because I always saw them as kind of hilarious when the first song I ever heard by them was BYOB on Guitar Hero. I think it was 3 or World Tour, one of them.
Yep.
But Zach and I used to like jam out hard because it's just that song is so obnoxious where it's like, yeah, you feed them lies from the tablecloth. It's so we always thought it was really funny. So I could never take them seriously. And then like what's that other song that they're famous for?
Chop Suey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put on the makeup. Let's go some with a shaker.
You want to.
Honestly, like,
It's just like,
dude,
it's
like,
so obnoxious.
I've seen a meme where like it's that meme where it's like a bunch of different hands like holding together, and it's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's like all these hands holding holding hands in like a circle.
Sure.
And it's like in the middle is Chop Suey, and then outside is like emo kids, punk kids, metalheads, country fans. Like, and as soon as Chop Suey comes on, like the entire crowd's just jamming out to that
like
song.
everyone
because like
knows.
everybody knows that song. I don't know why. But
Wake up.
So fun.
Yeah, so that's what I always knew them for. So I think it was they're definitely a more artistic metal band, and I don't say that condescendingly of like, no, they're artsy and they sound weird, but like they have a very experimental sound in a lot of ways. Like the title track off that album is like this hardcore political, it's like prison something or whatever, but it's like about the prison system.
You wouldn't think quoting prison statistics in a song would like go over
like,
well,
but
the way it does it is like, you're like, dang, this is like pretty impactful.
It's intense, yeah. And it's definitely not like quoting like the like, you know, they're playing a riff and in the background it's like this like, you know, where it's like kind of artsy. It's literally just like, there are this many males and like,
well, it's like
it's like jamming. But I dug it. Like it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot different than what I thought it would be. When I went 100%. Because I had the same. Like those two songs to me were a jam, but like I always thought they were like a goofy different. Like mess around band. Yeah, exactly.
Not like on like the cutting edge artistic side of metal.
Yeah, so I wrote this down because I feel like this epitomized what listening to that album was like for me. So it was the experience of watching an artist paint a beautiful picture, then smashing it with a bat, quoting Socrates in deep philosophy, then lighting the picture on fire while headbanging. Like that's what it felt like, where the rhythm of the songs were all of a sudden, it was like, I'm like bobbing along. I'm like, this is groovy. Like, dang, like, and from a metal perspective, it's like, this has some flow to it. Like I dig it. And all of a sudden it's just like,
the melodies.
And you're like, whoa, like what happened? And so, and it's just like freaking out. And then all of a sudden it comes back and you're like, okay, we're back. And then 3 seconds later, it's like a different like chaotic breakdown. And you're like, wow, this is not normal. Yeah. So
it's super good though.
I dug it. So I probably will go back through more of their library and check stuff out. But yeah, that was a good recommendation. It was fun. I think I had to kind of experience it for what it was versus like, this isn't my taste. So I don't get it, if that makes sense. But
for sure.
So that's what I've been listening to. Haven't really we did watch something. Gloria and I just finished Atlanta yesterday.
And you can watch that still?
Dude, that show, man. Watch it.
I'm waiting till Community's done. Yeah. That's like my show right now. But
the nice thing is, I think total, it's only like 21, 22 episodes for season 1 and season 2. And I think season 3 starts this April.
Okay.
But man, dude, like, this show is just so bonkers in how it just goes from like the most serious things to the most just like non-serious, ridiculous situations ever. Like it's very uncanny, and it has a surrealist humor to it where it's all these really unexpected things that keep happening. But then there's all these like moments following it where you're like, holy crap, like how did that just follow that? Like it's very weird. But I'm
super excited to check it out.
Yeah, so
for some reason I just enjoy Donald Glover as a person. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's stupid talented. So when you do watch it, let me know, because there's an episode in season 2 that is maybe one of my favorite TV episodes in anything ever.
Dang.
Like it's up there. So but I don't want to spoil it, because the way, like the roller coaster of that episode and the character that's in that episode in the midst of the show, it's just like, oh gosh, it's really good.
Dope.
So
I'll definitely
check that out.
Check it out, punks.
And then the main other thing was Anthem they had the closed demo this weekend, and I jokingly posted on Twitter.
It's a little rocky.
Right,
it's a little rocky.
It's been rocky. Friday night, I was excited all day to come home and try it, because I've been kind of on the border of I hate EA, but I love BioWare, and so where am I going to fall? So I really want to try it out, because I think that'll kind of be the deciding point. Of course, though, and if you have been following it at all, EA's servers just crapped out hard, and not just on Anthem, but everything. Like FIFA crashed out, and it just was a giant mess.
Yeah.
It was just bad. And I was able to try it on PC eventually. I hated it from the gameplay feel of like the mouse. Like it just did not control well from like the flight. But the combat, the general combat and the graphics and stuff look really good. Even so,
I read they tweeted something that said that expect the controls on PC to change or something like that before the beta came out. So
okay, interesting. Yeah, so, and again, it wasn't like everything, it was just specifically the flight.
Yeah.
Like, the flight was really touchy.
You'd think it would work best on PC, because you can just, like, if you could guide it with the mouse.
I think that's the thing, though. So, I'll kind of address that in a second. But, so, servers were down, I was really irritated. But as soon as I was able to get into it, and I've gotten to try it on Xbox One S, and I specifically say that because I know the X is like a mega machine, so it's going to look really good.
Doesn't look much better right now.
Interesting.
Compared to what I saw in yours.
Okay, sure.
I don't have 4K TV.
Not necessarily
though.
like the functioning, but like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think if they
Like graphics
maybe
and
if they
stuff.
tighten up the frame rate, but the frames look just as bad as I was seeing when I was watching you play
Okay,
it
yeah.
on Xbox.
I was seeing some
But-
stuff where people were talking
yeah, I
about
think it's
that.
the demo, so
Yeah, but
I hope.
so I've played it on both the Xbox and the PC, and like this is a day one for me. I've got specific reasoning. I think the biggest one is I really liked Mass Effect Andromeda. I've said that numerous times. There is a lot in terms of the combat and the gun mechanics and the maneuverability that is very reminiscent with that, with additional layers on top of it that is just stupid fun. Like, and it's really interesting and weird because a lot of the people that I've been seeing kind of griping about things, it's like, then I don't think you understood what you were walking into. Like, and granted, all these people who are talking about it primarily are gaming channels, so their livelihood is like playing games, and so they're like, oh, there's nothing new here. Which to me, as someone who does not play a lot of loot shooters or loot games, hasn't played a lot of like third-person shooters recently that I really, really loved, except for, again, Andromeda, and who actually was in the minority and really loved Andromeda. I am stoked. Like this, you have to experience this game. I think watching it, and everyone who's been watching it, they're like, yeah, it doesn't look that impressive to me. Like, it looks like every other loot shooter. Like, yeah, of course. Like, if you go watch Warframe, like, I hope if you're being integritous, you'd have the exact same response because it looks like every other thing.
Yeah.
But when you play it, this does not feel like Warframe at all. This does not feel like Destiny. This does not feel like Gears of War, The Division. This is its own thing. And just as those other games are their own thing too. But like, man, it is fun. Like, at least to me, the verticality, how fast you can move, you can double jump and boost, and then you're flying Iron Man style around like giant rock formations, and you're throwing things in. Your specials have quicker cooldowns, so it's actually encouraging you to use them more. There's different types of guns. You can customize your javelins really extensively. It just feels good. It's a lot of fun. And I think the big thing that I've also been seeing people not talk about is that, granted, I didn't play it enough to really get into like the loot mechanic, but there's enough of a narrative that is interesting, and it's a very show don't tell narrative, which in a technical sense that means they're not telling you like, there's this giant cube thing and we have to go shut down this cube thing because if this cube goes off, all life is going to die. And so you're kind of like, okay, like, I guess I'm going to do this thing. There's just like weird stuff that is happening, and you're just kind of thrust in, and you have to kind of decipher stuff.
I think that's a part of that. I think that's the demo too. I think because I noticed you start off at level 10 in the demo.
Yeah,
so you start off
ahead.
already further ahead.
Right.
And I think they just throw you into it, so you have no context about what's going on. They don't tell you how to play the game at all.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming when you actually get the game, there'll be a tutorial and stuff for people who
exactly
want to learn how to play it. And I'm guessing there'll probably be more, because I don't think there's much of like the story in the demo other than like these little missions you do.
Yeah, no,
I'm guessing
exactly.
once you get into that, there'll probably be more narrative things, and maybe it'll be more like Destiny, where it's kind of it's the background, not the foreground.
Right.
That's really going on, and what's really happening is the gameplay and the gameplay loops and the stuff.
Yeah, and
that's my impression after like an hour.
I think that's pretty accurate. And the thing is too that I think the gameplay loop has me excited because the vibe I'm getting is there is enough there that if you're a single player person, you're not going to be getting a full-blown God of War or Red Dead style narrative. Like, I just think that's unrealistic, and I think that's kind of what people are expecting, which to me is just stupid. Like, that's not being realistic with expectations.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Fallout. Like, they specifically told us, like, this is not a mainline Fallout game. This is an online
its own thing,
co-op experience.
Right.
And then people came into it with all those expectations anyway.
Like, what's wrong with this?
And they're like, this isn't what I
dumb.
wanted. And they're like, well, yeah, it's not. But obviously that has other issues too that this game hopefully doesn't have. But
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's kind of like, if it's not your kind of game, just don't buy it, don't play it, expecting it to be the next Mass Effect, like story-driven RPG,
right? Or to really tear the world by storm. Like, I don't think it's, even with as popular as games like Warframe was. And this is the interesting thing. So sorry, I'm getting ranty. I'll close out quick, but it's just been very interesting to me, and I think it was kind of like an eye-opening moment, honestly, for the commentary industry around video games, is that I think it's so oversaturated now, in a sense, that it's like, just play it. Like, I totally understand people being like, yeah, EA is a crappy company, and the fact that their servers just died across all their games, when all these people are, it's unexcusable. I 100% agree. But once I got in, I was mad when it kept crapping out, because I wanted to keep playing because it was fun and it was really exciting. And I think all these people who are like, well, it's just a Warframe clone, or it's just a this clone. It's stop with all this. Like, it's just this. No, it's not. That's like saying, this band is just this band with a different coat of paint. Then it's a different band. Like, it's not identical.
I think that sort of argument ruins actually critiquing the game, because then it becomes,
correct.
And that's the same thing. That's what happened with Fallout. Like,
right.
People insistently compared it to other like survival co-op games, which is what it's not trying to be. But people kept comparing it to that, saying like, this is why the game's bad. And then when you complain about the performance and the glitches and the bugs and all that stuff, then it kind of gets all mushed up together. And it's like, we need to separate these things. Like, you saying it's not what you wanted it to be is not a valid criticism for anybody but yourself.
Right.
But it having bugs and performance issues, then you can complain about it being a bad game for that reason.
Right. But, it feels like sibling syndrome, where it's
it's really preemptive, because it's a beta. They sent out a tweet saying like, or it's not even a beta, it's a demo. They haven't even called it a beta. So, and they sent out a tweet saying like, this is already an old build. Like, we've already improved a lot of the stuff you're probably going to complain about. Like, just see what you like about the game. Don't worry about the performance and stuff. We're working on that.
And that stuff is fixable. And I know people are going to, if there's anyone listening who's genuinely interested on that, like, yeah, it's inexcusable and they shouldn't have done it and blah, blah, blah. Division had a line bug on the PC where you physically had to stand in line. Destiny was broken too. I couldn't get in it on the first day and the servers were down. Warframe, from what I've heard from people, was crap when it first launched, and it over the last few years has become amazing.
Scared for this game, and probably why I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon right away. But I think if they follow the trend, then hopefully it'll improve in the first couple months.
And I think that's the thing, is I think people who are skeptical and are not buying in immediately to it, you're completely justified. I think the things that are and again, kind of to that point that I just chucked out, is that it feels like the criticism right now is like sibling syndrome, and I feel like that's what feels like the industry is being oversaturated with, is everyone is just starting to make the same judgment by saying it's just this but different. It's like, well, you're just your brother, you're just, smaller, like angrier or more tall or whatever. It's like, you have to look at these things as they are and as the game itself and judge it for what it is. As a third-person shooter and as Anthem, there are bugs right now that, it sounds like all fixable things, but I had enemies popping in and out. There were lots of times I got locked in the loading screen and I couldn't even get in. There were a few frame skips and things like when you're in the main hub world that it does not, it was kind of disorienting and it made me kind of sick walking around. There were points where things just didn't feel well and flow well in terms of, just like walking around and stuff like that. But once I was in it and playing it, this is its own thing. Yeah. This is very much its own thing.
I think this kind of game needs to... I think the industry so far has proven that this kind of game can't be what we want it to be on launch.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. Or bad for consumers. I don't know. I'm not arguing from that perspective. Right. But I think from what we've seen, anytime these single-player devs decide to jump on this multiplayer MMO style, whatever you want to call it, bandwagon, it never starts off as strong as anybody envisions it being. And I think hopefully with BioWare behind it, that it can actually succeed, and hopefully EA keeps their grubby fingers out of it.
From stealing resources and stuff.
So hopefully it can improve, and hopefully on launch it's at least playable, unlike Fallout was half the time, or unlike Division was for a while. Like there was different bugs and stuff. But like with the Division, it took them a couple months, but it was a fully functional game and more than people wanted, and eventually everything was free, I think, or something like that.
Right.
And I don't know what their game plan is here, but hopefully on launch it's at least playable. And then as they go, they continue to improve it and update it and listen to community feedback, and that's, I feel like that's going to be the deciding factor of its success. Unfortunately, with these kinds of games, success is usually based on performance rather than like the game itself, because it's promising to be a multiplayer online co-op experience, and if you can't deliver on that, then nobody's going to care about whether it's a good game or not.
And the bar of patience is very low at this point, I think, for a lot of gamers.
I mean, all of the people who have been burned by Destiny the past couple of years, like they're just like waiting for this new loot shooter game to come to keep. There's people who kind of jump from loot shooter to loot shooter, and like this is the next one that's coming, basically,
right? And
then Division down the line, and so it's kind of like everybody's kind of waiting to either attack it or to love it. So it's a lot of sharks in the water.
Yeah, and it's again, I think people, from a lot of the criticism that I've looked at, it's been interesting. Like I watched a video of Angry Joe's first impressions, because I tend to like him because he's fairly objective. Or he was honest. He was like, I started enjoying myself, and there were things. He said it took a little bit to get into it and to kind of get in the swing, but he said once the legendaries come into play and you start getting some of those abilities and just the verticality of the game and the motion and stuff like that, he was like, it was fun. I had a good time. And the unanimous opinion across all the guys, there was like 4 different guys that he was playing with, and he was asking all their opinion, and each one was essentially, one of them, I think Other Joe was like, nothing is impressing me too much right now. He's like, I'm still open-minded, but there's nothing that's like, oh, this is like the greatest game ever. And the rest of them were like, yeah, I had a good time. And I would say that's exactly how I felt. I think I would elevate it a little more because I'm getting the sensation of playing Andromeda again, and the parts about Andromeda that I really loved, which were the combat and how fast you could move and just going from one place to the other really quickly. And it's also giving me a very big Diablo 3 vibe in a sense, where it's like, because you get to use your specials faster and you get to use a lot of these things quicker, that's how Diablo is designed, is that it's not designed where, you know, you use your Warlock grenade and then it's locked out for 20-30 seconds. Like, there's a litany of spells and abilities that you have that all have different timers. So you're doing your normal attack, and then you're throwing this attack, and you're throwing this attack, and you're waiting for this attack to reload, so you're throwing this one, and it's like there's multiple things to rely on that it keeps it feeling like, okay, I am doing big damage intermittently through these points and balancing and moving, and it doesn't feel like you're like sitting still or having to, like, you know, run to cover every 3 seconds to wait for this ability to unlock, because that's the only way you're going to get through this guy. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to fly over here, take care of these guys. Okay, my buff is ready. Fly over here. It's super fast. It feels very fast, and that's what I love. So I definitely recommend that if you're still hesitant on it, absolutely try the open demo that they're doing next weekend, which is February 1st through the 3rd, I believe. I'm excited. I'm really excited for this game. I think it's going to be a day one buy for me. Specifically, again, not because I think it's going to be the next great loot shooter and it's going to blow me away. It has a very strong BioWare vibe.
Yeah.
And every game of BioWare's that I have played, yes, even Mass Effect, all of them, I have really, really, really enjoyed in some capacity. And so I think that's what's drawing me to it. So, of course, there's going to be things that aren't the best, and I'm fully expecting that it's going to be an evolving game and things will change. But there's a lot that I think is very hopeful and has me very hopeful that a lot of the other games, a lot of the other mainstream loot shooters like The Division and Destiny and Warframe, that just have me lose interest.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty much it.
Depending on how it turns out, I'll probably buy it a couple months down the line.
And to be honest, like, I think if you're one of those people who really loves loot shooters, but you're really unsure, try the demo. And if you're still not sold, wait until it hits like $40 and jump on it there.
Honestly, like, my hesitancy is not based on the fact that I love loot shooters and I'm avoiding it because I'm afraid. It's more, I don't like loot shooters that much. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of hesitant about the non-loot shooter mechanics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where it's like, is it going to draw me in, or is it just going to be another Destiny where it's like, it's fine, it's just, it's not my thing. Like, I want more direct storytelling that I can participate in. Not absolutely. Like I'm shooting like 50,000 guys and there's somebody speaking in my ear about what we're doing. Right. I'm like, what do you mean we're going to get this reactor and this cube and this thing and I have to like shoot all these guys? Like I have no idea what's going on right now.
Right.
And I'm playing with 3 other dudes like running around. Like I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, that's just not my thing. I don't like that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I think after playing it for like an hour, I think people who do like Destiny, who do like the Division and games like that, where you can upgrade your armor, upgrade your guns, upgrade your weapons, like to know there's basically like no stopping point, it seems, and like you can upgrade the color of your weapons and your armor. It's kind of like the old Halo Spartan armor stuff.
Yeah.
I think those kinds of people especially are going to like
really
this game.
Like this.
And if you're able to put up with what like you put up with in Destiny or in Division, like this is probably just going to be the same sort of stuff. Like there'll probably be server issues because there's going to be thousands of people trying to play it on the onset, and that'll get smoothed out, and hopefully they have enough content to keep people satiated throughout the month. So
definitely
see what happens. After playing for an hour, I'd definitely recommend it to anybody. I would recommend it to people who are fans of loot shooters.
Mm-hmm.
I would say anybody else, maybe wait a little bit or try it out in the beta and then go from there. But
yeah, and it's I do think it's cool that they did a closed one this weekend, and yeah, there were a lot of people mad, and I was pretty mad because I couldn't play it.
Yeah.
But there is another shot next weekend, February 1st through the 3rd, to try it for free.
I wonder if that'll be a new build or if it'll be the same demo.
That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a newer build, just to maybe distill some of the people freaking out about.
Yeah, I feel like some of these companies have too much faith in people's ability to like not see this as the game.
Yeah.
Like they always, like Bethesda did it with Fallout and stuff, and they put out a warning saying like this is not the game. Like all of these issues are probably going to be ironed out and fixed, but like people aren't capable of separating this from that. Like whatever you put out, people are going to associate that with the game.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And especially like when it's only a month away, like there's certain things you can't fix in a month. And so we'll see what happens.
Yep. Absolutely.
Cool.
How about you? What are your recommendations for this week?
I haven't done a ton of stuff. I think the big things are I read this comic called Private Eye, which was pretty cool. I think it's by Brian K. Vaughn, who wrote Why the Last Man. He wrote he's writing Saga, the big comic that's going on right now. He's written a ton of stuff, but he wrote this one, and it was like a web comic, I think, at one point. But I got the physical version from the library, and it's kind of like in a world like a post, the internet is gone. Basically, there's no internet, there's no smartphones, because like what happened was basically like the cloud like basically exploded somehow. Like it digitally exploded and released everybody's information all over the place to everybody. And so like people's search histories and online stuff and everything was kind of released to the world, and it basically made people extremely paranoid about privacy. And so like it's a world in the wake of that where like it's super like toned down. There's advanced technology, but it's all technology geared towards like being as private as you possibly can. So like people don't interact as themselves. They have like personalities they call NIMS, and they kind of like put on masks and stuff and interact in that way.
Cool.
And there's like libraries again, and they're like basically like search engines, and it's a federal crime to like leak somebody's like library, whatever. And so it's like it's this interesting society that's like super hyper focused on privacy because of the fallout with like the internet and stuff.
I like that. That's cool.
And basically it's like a mystery. Like the main character is a private investigator. He's like an illegal private investigator, and he's like trying to solve some crime, and it's like this guy trying to like restart the internet basically. And it's kind of it's a cool tale about privacy and internet. And
you said Private Eye is what it's called?
Yeah, it's called The Private Eye.
The Private Eye.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So that was really good. It was not what I was expecting. It was pretty good.
Is it like a one-off or is it a series?
It comes in one book. It's like a weird shaped book. Some comics are like these like weird like I'm doing stuff with my hands that people can't see, but yeah, it's just a one-off thing, but it's like pretty thick.
Sure.
So it was good. It took me probably a couple hours to read.
Nice.
In a couple different sittings. So it was good. And then the only other thing, music-wise, I've gotten into this band randomly called Say Anything. I
feel like I've heard of them.
You might have heard the lead singer, Max Bemis. He's written a couple comics. He's I don't like him as a person really, but that's
beside the point.
Yeah. But they're kind of a band from like the emo era, and they had this album called Is a Real Boy, that was like, he's just got a really interesting voice. Like it's almost like music. It's like emo pop. It's like emo pop punk, but with like a musical like showmanship vibe to it. Like,
weird.
Like he wrote it. I think he wrote it as a screenplay actually, and then the music is kind of like telling a story about this kid that's kind of like him, but not really him, and it deals with a lot of stuff that a lot of emo kids weren't talking about back then.
Sure.
A lot of like interesting things, a lot of things about like sex and stuff like that too. But what I'm saying is they released a new album because I never listened to them during my like emo music phase because I was kind of off put by his voice.
Right.
But he released a new album called Oliver Appropriate, I think. I don't know what the reference is because I haven't been following the band, but I like put it on and I was like, wow, this is like, I don't know what it is about it, but it like makes me feel like somehow like resolved or nostalgic. It's like this really weird feeling it's evoking. Yeah. And apparently this album is a sequel to their first album, and it's like their last album because he like was basically like, I'm done with music and whatever. He's like, he writes comics now.
Sweet.
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting. They've got a ton of albums, so I'm probably gonna go through their discography and kind of check out different things. So
if you're into like, so Say Anything, and it's Oliver Appropriate is
Appropriate, yeah. I think that's what it's called. That's their newest album.
And then the first one was
is a real boy ? I think. Classic emos with their weird titles. The newest album's not like the same. It's not like the emo vibe. It's more. It's hard to explain because there's a whole litany of explanations you'd have to go to explain the evolution of the genre.
Yep,
but
totally.
I thought it was good, and I think if you're into like pop punk or like just interesting, like not usual type of music, you might enjoy it. And the guy's really weird and interesting. Like he just gets into a ton of drama on Twitter and stuff. So
Twitter drama, nothing like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, I think those are the main things. I'm just still watching Community. So I've been watching This Is Us with Evan still, and man, the episode last night. I think it's on season 3 now, and it just hit me hard. Like I was tearing up. Ugh. I've been getting kind of disillusioned with the show because it's like almost taking the drama a little bit too far. Like there's just too many things going on and the characters just seem weird. But the episode last night that we watched, I was just like, oh god,
that's heavy.
It ties a lot of stuff back. So if you're into dramas and like good dramas, not like your classic cheesy, just
and
like,
I got shit cheated with him kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like actual like family drama that is somewhat rooted in like realistic, like things you can tie back
heavy
to
issues
like
and things like that.
Things. So it's super good. It's one of the only dramas that I've actually like watched and enjoyed. So,
yeah, nice.
So
sweet.
Yeah.
Well, here we go.
So that's that.
A whole week, or a whole month of prepping for this episode.
Yeah, we played three games. Well, 1.5 games with some YouTube
with some YouTube filler.
So yeah, preface before we get into it, we played the first 3 games kind of over the last month, I would say.
Yep.
So I beat the first game.
Same.
I got 75% of the way through the second game.
Same.
Maybe about 20% through the third game. And I just got burned real hard. I don't know, like, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Otherwise, I'm going to come to this like super bitter about Gears of War and just hate everything because like I want to do something else.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we didn't quite beat all 3 games, but I think we got enough experience in all 3 of them to kind of get a taste of the gameplay mechanics and the world and stuff. And then did a little bit of research on the side for some things that aren't necessarily explicit in the games. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess before we dive into anything too specific, I'm interested in, because you've played Gears before, so I'm interested in what your thoughts were just initially about the series and like what about it appeals to you now, like nostalgia wise maybe, and then kind of going from there. Yeah,
it's funny because when I first was introduced to it, I think it was back in middle of high school. So it was a couple years, because I think, so the order of the release was, the first one came out in 2006, so I was in like 6th grade. Because I was like basically right along. Second one came out in 2008, so that would have been right on the cusp of like 8th grade going into high school. And I actually didn't play, so I think I kind of came in 2009 or 2010. So that's kind of when I first started. And I started with Gears 2 because I think that's when I first got a 360. And I remember just being so drawn in. I think, and it's so cliche, but I think as a high school kid and being drawn in by like chainsaws and machine guns and muscular steroid dudes like ripping guys in half and like shotgunning them and they like explode into like bloody chunks, and like it was just like, I'm absolutely not supposed to like that, and I love it. And so
that especially the first game is like that. It's just like straight out of the early 2000s.
Oh my gosh!
My! Like when I booted it up, I'm like, yep. I can see who this is marketing to.
Yeah, exactly. You just like, all these dudes just being like super built and nice, and like the gravelly voices.
Their arms like 3 times bigger than they should be. And
right. It's like, and just, all the personalities and stuff. And like, it's so early 2000s. Yep. It's amazing. So I think, my initial introduction was kind of in that stage of life. And that's back when I think Halo was really big around my friend group, and any game that we could do LAN parties or split screen game stuff with. That was when 360 was king. Like right now we're in a really interesting time where all consoles are really kind of taking a spot in the industry as something to own, whereas I think back then it was like everybody owned a 360. At least that I knew that was the thing because of those franchises with Gears and Halo, and I don't really think there's much else.
It's kind of funny because we're doing this episode on Gears, but like thinking about why people played it, because I didn't have a ton of experience with it. I had friends who played it, and my brother played it a little bit. I think it was the second one. I don't remember, but I remember he pre-ordered it, and it came with that steel book that has like that dope chainsaw on the cover.
Dude,
I don't know if that's 2 or 3.
That's tight.
Because I think 2008 I would have been a sophomore in high school, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember he pre-ordered it, and it came with like the Golden Lancer or something, which obviously is for online.
Right.
And I think that was my main experience with it, is like people played online, or people played split screen, like horde mode or something.
Yeah.
So I had never even seen like the campaign or had any, almost didn't even realize it had a campaign, because I think when it was popular, it was because
the online
and the split screen stuff. So we're almost taking it from a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll be one of the things that we dive into that I think is actually really cool about this franchise, and one of the reasons I love it. But so just also some additional context. So I was just kind of curious. So I like went through and Googled, and I have tabs up on my thing of what video games looked like in 06, 08, and 2011, which were when all those came out. So in 2006, Gears 1 was actually the 4th highest selling game.
What was 1, 2, 3?
So 1 was Madden NFL 07. Number 2 was New Super Mario Bros. On the DS. 3 was Kingdom Hearts 2. And interestingly enough as well, right behind Gears at number 5 was Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, which was another third-person shooter, but more military, kind of tactical in terms of that. So that's kind of the lay of the land in like 2006.
Gaming landscape.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll just list out the top 10 because I think it's very telling of like what was kind of in the mainstream at that time. So you have Madden, New Super Mario Bros, Kingdom Hearts, Gears 4 Gears of War at number 4, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter at number 5, Final Fantasy 12 at number 6, Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories, which was PS2, number 7, NCAA Football, man, that's the name. They don't make those anymore. NCAA Football 07 was at number 8. NFL. Oh, interesting. So NFL 07 on the PS2 was number 1.
I can't believe the PS2 was still going until
hard as
That's
well.
Weird.
Madden NFL 07 for the 360 was number 9. And then Brain Age, Train Your Brain, and Minutes a Day on the Nintendo DS.
Oh, dude, that game 10. Was my jam. See, I was playing Brain Age. I wasn't playing Gears.
See, you were I'm a smart boy. But yeah, so I just thought that was super fascinating because I think that's one of the things when you look at Gears of War as a continual franchise is there weren't a lot of third-person shooters. It's specifically with when you get into how the game operates, how it like the vibe, the aesthetic.
There weren't a lot of shooters that had this kind of third-person, fully like functional like third-person shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a weird list. Like the top-selling game was a PS2 game
and a sports game. I mean, which isn't super surprising,
but still, PS2 was out when Gears of War was
coming out. Right behind that was New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, and then Kingdom Hearts. That game was my jam too. Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 2 at number 3. So this is in a weird landscape where like you have really big franchises, that were still right when things were coming out. So like Kingdom Hearts 2, like that's a big seller at that point, but it's a JRPG. You have New Super Mario Bros, which is not surprising it sells well, but that's on a portable handheld console. And number 4, you have this other than Grand Theft Auto on that game, none of those other games are M-rated or like M-rated for like chainsawing people in half.
Gore and violence. And
So it was just a very interesting lay of land at that time with Gears of War coming out. And I think it also has the 360. So Gears 3 was actually number 3 on 360 sales. So behind Madden and Advanced Warfighter on 360 was actually number 1, which is interesting.
So when did the 360 come out? Was Gears a launch title?
It might have been. Let me check that. Or I think right after. I think the 360 came out in 2005.
Okay.
Now we have computers. Jamie, can you pull that up?
Pull that up. That's interesting to me because
2005, November 22nd, 2005 was when the 360 launched, and then Gears came out. Gears of War came out in 2006, I think on March is what I was seeing.
So it was a pretty close after launch, at least.
Yes. So Gears of War came out.
When did Halo
November
3 come out?
7th, 2006. It was initially released for the 360 on November 7th, 2006 in North America.
So Gears came out before Halo 3.
Yes. Yeah. So it was very interesting.
So it definitely came out in like a ripe time when people were like,
would have latched onto it because there was nothing like it in the landscape. And so I think from there, that's why it just kind of exploded in terms of its cult like vibe. Like there are people who just live for that game. Like there's a competitive scene for Gears, and it's I did actually play a little bit of 4 the other day just because I was testing like an online. I bought in live and whole story, but I jumped in on playing online and I was like, man, this is addicting in a sense because it's not your typical first person shooter. I have to be faster than everybody. Like you have to kind of rely on your team because in this game, one shot close range with the shotgun, you're toast. And so if you're good, you're dodge rolling around, you're using cover to kind of give you that second and even that one pump that person needs to get their next shell in. If you pop up and you blast them, it's over. And so it's quick and you have to be really in tune with like motion and the momentum of your character and stuff. So it's just a very fascinating lay of the land that this franchise came into. And that's just talking from the industry side. So I thought that was an important context of like when it first came out, I think it built its momentum for the next few games because it came out in a time where it wasn't just another like JRPG or sports franchise. Or
what were the top games in 2008?
So top games in 2008.
Around Gears 2.
I'll see if it has that list. I'm on Wikipedia right now. So they best-selling video games in Japan, in the US. So best-selling video games of 2008 in the US. So this is also really interesting. So I think did the Wii come out in 07 or 08? I think it's around that time.
I can check that out while you go through the list.
So again, top 10, Gears of War 2 made number 7. So at number 1, you had Wii Play. Number 2, you had Mario Kart Wii. Number 3, 06. Okay, so it would have been a couple years later. But you had the top 4 games in 08 sales-wise, according to Wikipedia, were Wii Play, Mario Kart Wii, Wii Fit, and Super Smash Bros. Brawl.
I'm pretty sure Wii is the top-selling console of all time, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely.
It was like it was geniusly marketed. So
yeah, and so that's also the same year that Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, and that's also the same year that World at War came out. So those both were above Gears of War 2.
See, that's a tougher landscape.
Yep,
because by that point, military shooters were like
it was kind of picking up steam, and you've got in GTA being big.
Was like,
that was kind of like when it was in its heyday with 4. So it's cool to see like, man, like this was a really stalwart franchise in a landscape that was evolving in difficulty to really stand out over the years. And then to see what 2011 did for Gears 3. Oh, I will Google that. But anyway, so I don't know if you want to. So I'm coming from this as I loved this franchise when I was in high school. I didn't really care what other stuff was going on, but I know that the appeal to me was there was nothing like this.
Yeah.
Especially kind of transitioning out of being a Nintendo kid and like jumping into like, okay, now I need like a big boy system because I can have the money and I'm getting something. It's like, what am I going to do? And immediately it was like, well, PS3 or 360, because we already had a Wii and a GameCube, I think. So it was like, where am I going to go? And immediately it was like Halo and Gears of War. Those look dope. And that was the thing that pulled me in. So as someone who is kind of coming in like almost like over a decade later to like the series and kind of starting from square one and working your way up, obviously like burnout aside, what was kind of your opinion and like what kind of was appealing to you as you were going through it?
Yeah, so the first game, I really liked the first game. I think it was weird playing it because when I popped it in and it started playing, like a huge rush of nostalgia for the 360 just rushed over me. Because I didn't play the Ultimate Edition, like the remaster. I played the actual like 360 version, and it was just so fun. It was so nostalgic, and I think it's hard to play a game in the context of when it came out because I've been spoiled by third-person shooters that are actually good, like mechanics-wise. But I've also experienced some that are trash that make me bitter. I won't name names, but I was surprised for it being a game from 2006 that it looked pretty decent. It definitely felt like a game from the 360 era.
Yeah.
And gameplay-wise, I was surprised how well the controls worked for a game from that period.
Yeah.
Because even like playing old Grand Theft Auto games, like the third-person shooting on like 3 and stuff is like sometimes kind of janky, but this game, like, even though they improve on it throughout the next games, like even the first one, like it felt really tight, especially for somebody who hates third-person shooters.
For sure.
Third-person shooters.
Right.
But yeah, I think coming into it, it just felt good to play the first one. Burnout aside. Yeah. So I've got a couple lists that are popping up. So depending on the list that I'm looking at, some of them are basing it on all consoles and how many sales they did, and then some are basing it on like, you know, I think Wikipedia was doing it per like system, or I'd be almost more interested to see like what sold on the 360.
Yeah, so 360.
So the Wii games kind of like don't give me a good picture because it's like,
of course,
people who were buying a Wii weren't playing the same games.
Yeah, exactly. So 360, and this is according to The Guardian on best-selling games of 2011. Their breakdown was number 1, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Number 2,
baby,
boy. Number 2 was FIFA 12. Number 3 was Skyrim.
Oh yeah.
Number 4 was Battlefield 3, and number 5 was Gears of War 3.
I'm wondering, is Oblivion on the list for 2006? If it was
yes,
just
it was.
360?
Yep.
Because I was like, these games. It seems weird that these games aren't on there.
Yeah, and actually,
at
Nintendo, number 4. So
gets skewed.
Going back to Wikipedia, in the 360 only list, at number 4 was Oblivion, and at number 3 was Gears of War.
Okay.
So I mean, you had some like dynamite games in this in all of those years. Like it wasn't just like an off year and like, you know, these games came out. Like these were killer years.
I think thinking about single player experiences, if this game was just a single player game, it would not have stacked up. I don't think.
I agree.
And I think the beauty of these games, especially probably the first 2, because the third one, like multiplayer was just out of the roof. But like in 2006, like we didn't have Halo 3 yet.
Yeah.
And so like people still were playing Halo 2 probably on the original Xbox or like the PC or something.
Yep.
And so like this was almost, other than maybe Call of Duty, like this was probably one of the first like online multiplayer shooters that was like functional.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious to see when Modern Warfare 1 came out.
Yeah, I thought it was around that time.
Because that game was like when Call of Duty just like
that just exploded and I think that took it in. Yeah, so
I think like this just thinking about this game coming out before Halo 3, because I think Halo 3 is like the defining game of
the
360 generation.
Definitely.
But this game actually kind of kicked off the 360 in some ways.
100%.
So that's Modern Warfare 4 wouldn't come out till 2007.
Yeah.
So this game was out before like that Call of Duty as well.
Yeah.
So that's crazy from an industry perspective.
Yeah. So I think that's really fascinating. So I think to dive into, I think what we took away from playing that was really, so we kind of have some specific questions to like go through, and I think that kind of goes to what we really love. I think one of the things to me that's really, really special about Gears of War is that the campaign is actually my favorite part. Like I never touched the online when I had played through them. Like I only knew the Gears of War franchise through the campaign. Like that's and that's still why I love them, is the story for the genre, the style, the aesthetic. This game just didn't make sense to me in a lot of ways. Where it was like, wait a second, you have these like buff, angry dudes, and there's like deep emotional, like traumatic things that happen, and they actually like process through that. Like, whoa, like this is deep. Like,
yeah,
it just all of a sudden, and so hardcore spoilers from here on out for Gears of War. I mean, it's
an old game.
It's over 10 years old, so if you're gonna freak out, I don't know what to do for you. But I remember distinctly the scene in Gears of War 2, and this is the interesting thing too. So 1 was not that way. Like
I think Gears
campaign,
1 was decent, but it was cookie cutter.
Yes.
It was like, we're the good guys. We need to go
guys.
find the bad guys. We need to go blow the bad guys up and save the world.
Yep.
And like that's what they did.
Yes.
But then
2
jumping
just
into
takes
2,
a turn, like real quick. And
I don't know. I wonder if they like made a decision in the second one to like, okay, we need to tell a more meaningful story or something, because it felt like a huge jump.
It's a huge jump.
Yeah.
But in the same way, it just goes from there. And even playing through 4, and I probably played through half of it, like it continues. And I think in 2, I distinctly remember the scene with Ty. And so I watched a video actually on like his backstory. So he's actually from this tribe that, I think it's the COG, or there's like warring groups in the Gears of War world.
The UIR.
So there's the UIR and there's the COG.
Yeah.
And I think it was a bunch of UIR people who came and they like murdered his whole group. And he like goes nuts. So he goes like Rambo style. He's like in the jungle and he's like murdering these dudes and he's getting it. And actually I think there's a whole comic that's about Gears of War.
There's comics and there's books actually.
Yeah.
And they're written by the same lady, or I think it was a lady who wrote these games actually.
Yeah. Which, goodness sakes, I love this story. But so this is like where I'm pulling this from. So he actually runs into Marcus Phoenix, who's the main character that you play as, and he's like threatening to kill him, and he's like, look man, like I'm with the COG, like I'm fighting the same dudes as you should join us. And so that's why Ty becomes a COG soldier, and he's just like known for being this like brute, and he's actually the one who created the chainsaw gun. And so Marcus's dad was an engineer for the COG, so he's like created the Hammer of Dawn, which is like the giant laser beam that comes down from the sky. He's the one who actually created the chainsaw bayonet, which is like the iconic like vring, and he's like
yeah.
So, which is like my favorite part of the whole game when you actually land those. But so Ty was the reason that they made this, because he was just a brutal force, but he also had all this religious depth to him and kind of like a Buddhist style where he's very much of like peace with the war. And like the video I was watching, the guy was recounting this like story that kind of solidified what Ty's character was. So he like kills this UIR guy, and the guy's like bleeding out, and he's like holding him in his arms as this guy is dying, and he's just like, be at rest, and his body dies. And 3 seconds later, he's got him as a meat shield, and he's like using him to like protect. And it sounds super
like Gears
weird,
of War.
but the explanation was that his culture was like, as long as the soul is in the body is sacred. Like you don't violate that. But if the soul leaves the body, it doesn't mean anything. And so that's like,
off.
So all that backstory. So there's this scene in Gears of War 2 where Ty and a bunch of other people get taken by the Locust, and they're underground, and they're like looking for him, and they're on this torture barge. And I actually didn't notice some of these details until this video pointed it out. But so they find Ty, and he walks out, and he's just beaten. Like he looks
like they
decrepit.
tortured him to death, basically.
Yeah. And so what I didn't realize is actually he explained what the torture was that they did to him. So I don't know if you remember, but there's a shot where it's like shooting him from behind, and there's a bunch of like rings like shoved through his back, basically. Mm-hmm. So what he said that they did is they actually suspended him in the air through those rings, torn through his back, and they just like whipped him to death, basically. And so so this is the scene. So like I did not know all this backstory until like a week ago when I was like diving in, and he walks out of this thing, and everyone is like remembering like just brutal Ty. Like he doesn't die. He's invincible. He is the man. Like this is the dude that we charge in with.
Yeah, he just got right before that. He just got done like taking down that dude with like the sword spear or whatever. That was like,
and
like, what the heck is that? And Ty's like, go guys, I can take him.
Yeah, and so
then the next time you see him, he's
like
in
mangled.
The scene, yeah.
And so Marcus hands him a shotgun. He's like, all right, Ty, come on, let's go. And he just kind of sits there holding it. And
oh gosh.
and then he like slowly turns it on himself, and Marcus like turns. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "No," and Ty kills himself right there. And you're like, "Fudge, dude!"
Yeah,
like,
I was not ready for that scene.
Whoa! Like
even without any of that context, I was not ready for that scene.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden you're like, this just got dark. Like all of a sudden, this isn't a game where it's like, there's bad guys underground and we're trying to save the world, blah blah blah. It's all of a sudden like
there are real consequences
for what's happening. And again, in the video, this I'll post a link in the thing because this person was reading the details and stuff, but he explained that the reason he killed himself was because of that code and his religion of like, in his mind, his soul had already left. Like his body wasn't worth anything. Like the locust had literally tortured out of him his soul and like anything that was, and it was just like, whew, like I'd never known all those details. Like I just knew like, holy crap, that guy killed himself. Like that's intense. But it was just like, man, like this is a military shooter about these guys like fighting these dudes who live underground, and it's just kind of bloody and violent and whatever. But all of a sudden, as a high school kid, it was like, I had never experienced a story where all of a sudden it just got deep. Like it was mature and it was violent, but that wasn't the draw. The draw was like, I'm going along with these soldiers who are fighting for survival, and they just saw one of their toughest brothers take himself out because it was too much. And so there's that scene, and then you go further in the game, and so this entire time from the start of the game, Dom, who's one of the other main characters, is looking for his wife, Maria.
Yeah.
And like, man, so there it gets to a part where him and Marcus, who are like best buds, they're like brothers. They find a large group of where they think that she is, and he finds her, and she's like zombified and very similar to Ty, like she's gone, and like who she is gone, and she's like dying and she's suffering. And so Dom has to like kills her like right there.
Dude,
and just like
I teared up at that moment.
Dude, the way they shot, like it's just, I think what was so fun about going back to these games too is I just have a very different eye of like, okay, I've experienced all this media and I've studied it and I've looked at it, and just like how they portrayed the emotion of him having to do that was just like, that was so freaking heavy. That was way heavier than I remember it as a teenager, of just like, Dom is like, oh my gosh, like Maria, I couldn't do it. Like we couldn't get here in time. And he's like crying and like heaving as he's holding this gun to his wife that he loves and he's trying to rescue. And he's like, and then Marcus is, you know, like, and I think Marcus says like, Dom, it's okay. And he just starts walking away. And then like Dom just like looks at him and he pulls out the gun, and it just, how both of them were both in the same spot of like, you know what you need to do, and it's not going to be easy, so I'm just going to let you do it. And like Marcus is walking away, and you're like seeing him walk amongst all these other cages, and you just hear the gunshot go off, and it pops into a close up on his face, and he just like looks over his shoulder with this face of just like, oh, and just keeps on walking. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like, this game does not make sense. Like this is not supposed to be what this is about. Like,
yeah. And I think for me, both of those things, because I didn't know any of that stuff about Ty or anything, but I think going into these games, I was not expecting this level of depth. And I think like even going into like the world perspective and the lore, like in my mind, Gears of War was kind of this like power fantasy for like dude bros to play, and like just running around as like buff dudes chainsawing bad guys in half. And if all you played was the online, that's probably what it would be.
Right.
But I thought it was interesting that when you actually play through the stories, like there's actually a lot of stuff in there that's like a commentary on like war and a commentary on like conflict and violence and stuff that like you're almost like, are we actually the good guys in this? Like are what we
definitely.
Is what my character doing right? And like I would not have gotten that if I had never played these games. So it's like, it's a weird way that they wrote it in a way that actually like defies what you would assume the game would be about. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, those two moments, man, like,
well, and did you see
with Ty hit me, and then when he had to shoot his wife, like I was like tearing up because the first part is she comes out and she's fine. Yeah. And like, I'm like, wait, how is that possible? And they like hug, and all of a sudden it flashes, and I'm like,
and Marcus is like, Dom, look. And then he looks at her, and she's just like a zombie.
And you can just like see the pain in his eyes. And like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like I teared up. I was like, I was like, don't look at me, Evan. Like, I'm crying playing Gears of War.
Yeah, but it's so weird. Like, it's such a weird thing.
I was
like,
not expecting.
Yeah,
like,
you're
up.
not expecting that. And
Yeah.
I did you get to the part in 3? Like, did you get?
No, I read some stuff, so I know what happened. I didn't feel the full emotional
Dude, you
weight.
gotta see the scene. Yeah. It's just because I was playing through it.
You talking about the part with Dom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my lord. I'll describe it and then
here I'll pull it up and watch a soundless version of it.
Oh no, dude! You need to watch it with the sound because it's just like specifically like one of the things that hit me. So Dom basically sacrifices himself. So literally moments before he sacrifices himself so his team can get away, he's in Maria, his wife's hometown, and he's at the statue.
Oh yeah, like, he's bringing his cogs to like put on her grave or something.
Exactly. And so he's like standing at the statue and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm getting like emotional thinking about it, but he's like talking to her and he's like, I miss you. He's like, but you're with the kids now, like, so you're good. And like, and he's standing there and he's like, I hope I don't have, he's like, I'll see you soon. I hope I'll see you soon. And like, he like puts the keychain, like his Gears tags on the statue. And then this whole scene goes on and they're overrun by Lambent. There's all these people going and all this stuff. And so he jumps into this truck and he drives off and Marcus is like yelling at him like, Dom, what are you doing, Dom? And he like drives in and sets off this explosion that like basically takes out the Lambent so they can escape. And Marcus just like loses it. Like he's just like, Dom. And so he's like running and he's like, I gotta get him the F out of there. And then I think it was Anya or Sam. I can't remember. I think it's Anya, but who ends up being his wife later. But
she's the blonde one, right?
Yeah. So he's running in trying to save her, and then another explosion goes off. And this was the part that just ruined me, was like, he's standing there and he's like kneeling on the ground because like the explosion knocked him back, and Anya's like running up to him and is just like has her hand on his shoulder and she's like, Marcus, he's gone. It's okay. Like just like he did with Maria for Dom. And I was just like, oh, you can't do this, man.
Gosh.
Like the feels, like what is going on? And like, man, I'm like sitting at my desk just like, where is this in modern gaming? Like, where is the balls, frankly, to just like have this game that is about bloody, unadulterated violence that is also about like deep sacrifice and like protecting your brothers and your family and like going through all these trials with them, and then having this happen and just like the devastation in his face and just that whole scene is just like, frick, dude.
Yeah.
Like, man, this, I don't know.
I think that's the interesting part about the series to me, because if it was what it portrayed itself to be, I probably just wouldn't be interested in it, because I don't, like I say all the time, I don't like third-person shooters.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I don't really like just like the over-the-top violence for the sake of it.
Yeah, because
it's just like not my thing. But I think the fact that they brought in all of these like story beats and like it kind of shows almost like the legitimate, not that it needs to be legitimate, but it shows like the legitimacy of video games in a storytelling sense, because like you can take the most ridiculous premise, the most ridiculous bombastic violence fueled like video game, and like you still get these emotional complex characters and story beats out of it. And the game has its moments where it's just like goofy, cheesy, like they would say that.
Yeah, it's like you got like the military humor where they're like making jokes and stuff.
And it's interesting how they're able to tie all those different story beats together with the way the characters are complex and stuff. And it's kind of cool. Definitely. And like the surface level is just this sci-fi military shooter, but like you can get so much deeper into it.
Yeah. So to go down that road too, because I thought this was really cool, and just that you and I actually had like basically the same kind of conspiracy theory about it, is that we Googled before it because we were discussing, and I'll kind of let you take where the cues that kind of popped up for you that it was. But so the first game came out in 2006, which was 3 years before actually the Iraq war started. And some of the things that are at play here in the Gears games. So before even Gears 1 starts, there's all these references to what's called the Pendulum Wars. And that's between these two different, basically like, I don't even know if you call them like governments. The COG is like a socialist party, I think, essentially. And then the UIR is like a different thing. So they're fighting over this resource called emulsion, which is basically this like super fuel and like oil. And so they're like fighting over this resource, and as they're fighting over this resource, the cog wins. But then immediately after that war, the Pendulum War ends, there's E-Day, which that's when the start of Gears 1 kicks off. Is like I think it's like a couple months or a little bit into
I think they said, I think the video that I watched, it was like 6 weeks after they finally gained peace again. Those creepy
locust.
crawly things burrowed through the ground and came up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but anyway, so take it away.
Yeah, I think a lot of this stuff's not in the game inherently.
Yeah,
like it is.
We did a lot of digging.
You can pick it apart and piece it apart if you read because there's little notes that you can pick up that have like doctor's notes or like a note written to somebody about some correspondence, and like it's kind of like environmental storytelling that I didn't piece together myself. I watched a couple videos about like the history, and like I said, there's also books about this stuff that probably goes more into the history. But I think it's interesting that when you kind of get the broader context of the games, it puts it in a perspective of like you kind of question whether you're actually the good guy or not. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Are the cogs even really like? Is Marcus even a good guy? Like, and the individual characters, you're kind of like, as you're playing them, you see their motivation for doing what they're doing, and you're like, yeah, like they're trying to fight what they think is best. But like in the larger context of this Pendulum War, it's almost a commentary on like. It almost reminds me of like Game of Thrones. Like humanity is constantly like infighting with itself that it can't perceive the fact that there's a third threat coming that will destroy them all.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happens, because I don't remember exactly what happens, but basically the locusts, which are actually just mutated humans that bred over time or something like that. Yeah. Like they tried to heal these certain humans with the emulsion something or other, and they turned into like these creepy things. Yeah,
because I think they got the whole story is that the emulsion actually was like toxic, and so it gave people called like rust lung, which I think they kind of dive into the third one, that people like humans start going lambent and stuff. And so what I understood is that eventually because they were like dumping it underground and like it just started polluting the whole.
Those like the creatures in those tubes in number 2.
Yeah.
Those things like burrowed underground. They like escaped and burrowed underground and like started mating and stuff. And so like the locusts and stuff are the result of those things having mated over like generations.
Yeah, and it's there's some like twisted like
it's creepy.
Yeah,
there's
really
like all
weird.
it's like they're like basically superhuman, like reptilian. It's funny because they're like underground reptilian race of people, and that's like the Alex
lizard
Jones
people,
thing, like
right.
lizard people. So it's like almost making fun of like that conspiracy. But I think it's just, I don't know if it was supposed to be directly about like the Middle Eastern politics in our world, but I think it is interesting.
There's
a lot of parallels, and maybe it's more of just a commentary on war in general and a commentary on like war as a device of geopolitics. And we don't need to get into that because we're not politicians and we're not talking about whether that's right or not. But I think it's interesting that there's more to the games than you're led to believe, like I was saying before. Like
definitely
when you dig even further beyond that. So the lore is fascinating. Like I thought the games just took place on an Earth in like the really far future, but it's actually a different planet called like Sarah or something like that, and the humans are called Sarans, and I didn't get any of that until I watched the video. So it's definitely something you have to dig for. Like, it's not there. It's not like in your face trying to make this statement about whatever.
Definitely,
but like there's a lot of story in these games that you just don't pick up on immediately, but you kind of get little tastes here and there, and you're like, what are the Pendulum Wars? Like, why do they keep referring to them in a negative light? And like, how is that resulting in what they're doing now? And so,
yeah, I think, and that's like one of my one gripes with the game, but I almost think at the same time, it was a lot of fun because I didn't know any of this stuff going in, and I still loved it when I first played it. But going through this time, I was like, okay, well, I'm not spoiling anything. Like, let's just dive in. Like, who is Queen Mira, and where are all these locusts coming from, and what's their big thing? And the interesting thing is like the reason the locusts actually surfaced and started the war was because Marcus's dad was a scientist trying to work on a cure for the lambent infection, which basically turns them into these like exploding zombie creatures. And so he was trying to create a cure for them, but he was running out, like he wasn't doing it quick enough. And so like the lambent that were starting to form underground were starting to overtake the locust in their home underground. And so as a result, they came to the surface to basically like clear out the humans so that they could escape the lambent. But then in the process, like the lambent make their way up, and it's just kind of a giant mess. But it's things like that where I was like, holy crap, everything just changes, because all of a sudden, you're right, like it isn't this, oh, the cog are good. Like I never thought of the spat. Like I think one of the videos I sent you, it describes how the cog is actually more like a socialist party, and the UIR is more like a free market type, like capitalist.
Yeah, I forgot what it was.
Community.
It was like something republic or something like that.
And so it's basically like capitalism versus socialism, and then the socialists win, but then the locusts come to the top, and so the socialist group has to take on this underground people, and it is, I think your clarification was good.
I think it was socialist, at least based on the imagery that I saw.
Definitely.
Socialist in like the Nazi sense. Like,
yes.
Like militaristic, like fascist, sort of. Not like communism. Like, it was more like heavily militaristic,
sure.
like fascist, like that kind of. Like, whatever that socialist
definitely
means. Yeah.
But it's interesting because all of a sudden it turns into this.
Because you're technically like
the guy, the
bad
good
guys.
Guy. Yeah. But then you're also the ones charged with saving the world, and it's they play up that it seems like a lot of the military heads were not passing down this information, because there's times when Marcus and their team gets like pissed, and it's fat. Like
they don't even agree with like the politics of what's going on.
But they're like,
stuff.
we need to
but they're
have
still
a world
soldiers.
to live on.
Like
exactly.
They're fighting for their families, and well, not all of them have families, but but just kind of that vibe. And so I think that's one of the things that came away that was really new, of like, man, this has a lot of parallels to like a resource war, and the fact that they basically like decimate all the locusts and all the lambent and stuff on Sarah, and like, it's their new world. It's just, it took a new spin for me that I was like, man, like this game, like this franchise is really deep. And I think it's the same reason that I kind of, maybe that's one of the things that's kind of been underlying why I pick at certain games that make it into the limelight, of like, there used to be games like this that were brutal and violent and for mature audiences that had really good narratives. And it's not going to win a Golden Globe or like going to be the greatest. I don't even know if that's the award it would win, but like, it's not going to win any awards for like the most amazing, mind-blowing story ever. Like, it's not going to win any like God of War type stories. I think that's the thing about the story is it knew its place. Like, it knew that there was this whole commentary and this whole story, but that wasn't the point of the games necessarily. Yeah. Like, they weren't trying to make a political statement with these games. But it is interesting looking at the surrounding lore and the world building around it. Like, there's a lot more to it if you dig deeper and you have an interest in the games and kind of want to go more.
Definitely.
But yeah, like it's not like there are the emotional moments and there are like the goofy, kooky military humor moments and stuff, but it's good. I would argue it's not on the same level as like Red Dead Redemption 2 story.
Absolutely.
Like, that was like an epic, basically, or
definitely.
like God of War's story. But it's definitely like, it has meat to it, and there's more to it than you'd expect. It's kind of cool,
for sure. So we're kind of hitting the hour 15 mark, and there's a couple of things that we haven't touched on. So I think to keep it moving, maybe one of the fun discussions is like, did you have any like favorite characters or people that as you went along, you're like, this is my dude. Like, I love this guy.
I mean, we probably liked the same person. Maybe not, though.
Yeah.
My favorite was Coltrane.
I think everybody's favorite is Coltrane.
I know. Like, how can you not like him? And getting to play as him for a little while in 3 was fun. So. He's just, I don't know. Maybe he's a stereotypical character. I don't know, but I thought he was fun.
Yeah, I think.
And getting to do that little scene with him doing the touchdown, but it's actually he's at his locker and then he goes on the football field and he's like imagining he's like getting a touchdown, but really he's got a bomb in his hand.
He's
blowing
like
up
a
stock or whatever.
Definitely.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think what kind of hit me about that, because I like specifically watched through that scene because I forgot that you got to play as Cole in the third one, but I think what was cool about that one is the entire franchise like plays off the fact that he is this icon, but now he's a soldier, and he's a soldier in this war that is life or death. And so they like leverage the fact of like when they're going to these camps of these outsiders, they're like, hey, it's Coltrane, it's Coltrane, and they're like chanting and stuff, and just how much. And then when they go back to that part of the world, there's like still like a statue for him, and there's all this, people remember him, and they're like, we're only talking to you because you're with Coltrane, and Coltrane's cool. Which it was really kind of like, wow. Again, the cinematics of the scene when he's going to his locker and he's like pulling out all this stuff, it wasn't just like, man, these were the good old days. It's like, this is a man who has watched his whole world fall apart, and he used to be someone who was like revered and like honored for like, I think is it thrash ball? I think
thrash ball, yeah.
You know, like thrash ball
is
basically
like football,
yeah. But you know, he's like revered for the like his sport, but like now he's in a world where they don't have time for that because they're gonna die if they don't keep going. And so just being able to see it, like I felt like that added a lot of depth to his character of like, it's not just he misses playing football, it's that he misses that the world had the ability and the time to actually care about something superfluous like a sport. Whereas now it's like he's walking into the stadium where his livelihood and who he was formed, and it's covered with all these things trying to murder him and his friends and these people around him. And, you know, so he's kind of like living through this glory day of like, well, I'm just going to get my kick through like running this bomb down the field to this thing and like slamming it in it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was like a cool moment. But yeah, I definitely like Cole. There's a special place in my heart for Baird, actually. Like,
honestly, he was my second option too. Yeah.
Just how sarcastic he is and just like, yeah, all the stuff that like I love when they're in the hive in the second one and he rigs up the thing because he's the engineer. So he like, you know, Mira's like chanting all this stuff to the locust and like, go fight and earn my children and blah, blah, blah. And then they like hijack and Cole's like, what up, boys? It's just like cussing them out and just going nuts. Like that was like one of my favorite scenes in all the games of just like him just giving this like, we're coming for you. It's so good. It's one of my favorite moments. But so to kind of close out, I guess, because otherwise I think we've kind of gone in a good progression. So to close out, what do you kind of potentially playing the fourth and fifth games down the road? Fourth one obviously is set in stone, but what are you kind of hoping the fifth one does? Because you had in a couple episodes mentioned kind of like if they were to re-overhaul everything and just kind of do everything very differently, what would you look for?
Yeah, I think my overall hope would be that they bring the story to the forefront. Because I think like we're getting hyped on the story and we're talking about all these different things and like the ramifications for the story and the history and the politics behind it. And like none of that's really like in the forefront in the game itself.
Sure.
And I think bringing more of that to the fifth game, I think would be kind of cool. I need to play 4 to see kind of where they progressed. But I like going from 1 to 2 to 3, there was noticeable differences between the way that they told the story and the way like when you get to 3 and you kind of get to go through when you're playing as Cole and you get to go through the different districts and you get to you almost get like a taste of the world.
Yeah.
And you get like, but you still know as soon as you get down like an alleyway and there's boxes lined up, you like know you're going to get into a firefight. Like while playing the game, you still feel like you're in an on-rails shooter.
Yeah.
And like
I agree.
I feel like and maybe that's just what they want it to be, but I feel like there's ways of getting away from that and still being the same kind of game. Because like there's plenty of third-person shooters that don't rely on like that level of environmental setup.
Yeah.
Because like agree. You can always tell when a fight's about to break out in Gears.
Yep. Yeah.
And I don't mind it. It's just jarring, I think. Like it kind of pulls you out of the world a little bit because it looks like the world is set up for you to play in it, basically.
Yeah.
And instead of you using whatever the environment would have been as your cover, they just like kind of set up the world as cover for you.
Right.
It's like I don't think this is how the world would have been like.
Right.
There's not just crates everywhere for me to hide behind.
It's like, oh, convenient.
Yeah. So
this ammo box.
Like it almost feels a little like the world is set up for me to exist in.
Sure.
That
makes sense.
Instead of letting me use the environment to my advantage, they kind of build the environment for me to use.
Definitely.
And I don't know exactly how you'd fix that, but I think the next one could do better with that. And maybe 4 did improve on that. I haven't played 4, so
yeah, I think
I just think if it keeps doing the same thing
ton.
And not changing more than it did between, like it changed enough for me to enjoy each one a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it didn't change enough for me to say this is going to be the next big game.
Right.
Like I think it's going to get stale if they don't like just completely revitalize it.
Definitely. Yeah, so, I think I agree with those criticisms.
And maybe like I think people play Gears because of the online. Like I think that's the major thing. But like to draw someone like me and like the non-online player, I think something needs to happen. But
yeah. No, I think that's very fair, and I actually would agree. I think it's my perspective on it, having played through the series like twice now, or like most of the series twice now. I think it's one of those games where it almost isn't designed for the story, but the story has an amazing vibe, which is like strange. Yeah. So I think for me, that's one of those things that it's not that I don't think it's not important, the level design and stuff. I think it's just their whole, in a way, I almost like that they do that because they're very digestible. Like playing through 4, you're like, okay, like I'm on to the next little piece, like I can take a break, or like it moves it forward. Like it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm like dying because I don't know where to go and there's all this space to move. I will say you still get the vibe of like, all right, this is the courtyard, it's about to go down. But I feel like in 4, from what I've played, and I've played through about half of it, the narrative starts out slowly, but then picks up and really starts trucking. And I was like, oh, this is all right, sweet. There's some things that I'm having questions about that are, you know, kind of alluding to some things that I'm like, whoa, this is going to be wild. I think then with the combat though, it does have a similar vibe of like, okay, I've been walking for like 2 minutes and we're about to walk into the next big thing. Like but I think also it's the same way if you were to play like, you know, I really enjoyed like the Modern Warfare, whatchamacallit, campaigns as well, you know, but I think it's the same thing. It's like, how do you innovate, or how do you give this without giving it like an open world feeling, or like, you know, and I think that's just one of the asterisk on the franchise is like, it's got a great story. The story is going to be kind of backseat sometimes to just kind of pushing you into the next arena.
That's kind of it's almost like on me, because like in the same way I would argue that if Call of Duty wanted to actually innovate, like they should create better single player campaigns.
Right.
But like that's geared towards someone like me, not someone like
who's actually playing it online
perspective. And I definitely see that point. Sure. But I think like, I don't know, I just feel like it's going to get stale. Like I'm sure there's like a community of people who are like diehard Gears fans who are going to always play the next Gears game online. But like, you don't hear about Gears anymore, really. Like in the mainstream like conversation, I feel like you just don't hear about Gears 4 being the pinnacle of like third person online shooting anymore. Yeah. And maybe it is, I don't know.
It's not. Well, and that's the thing, to just kind of give some context to that. 4, I think, has been, other than Judgment, I think was the one that was not like ill received. I think it didn't there's a clear progression from 1, 2, and 3 where like every single one has a noticeable improvement across all the facets, in my opinion. Oh yeah. I think 4 didn't feel like a backstep. It just felt like a sidestep. Like it should have done
like they just
something.
Used 3 and then made a different game.
And like gave it better graphics and kind of added guns and stuff like that. And so, and again, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. I think because I'm really excited for 5 and to continue playing 4 just to keep going through and seeing how things happen. Yeah. But I think in terms of, I think you're exactly right that they need to add, it's kind of like, what's the goal of their game? Like, what's the goal for their franchise? Is there a goal to make the greatest third-person shooter ever? Then they're not hitting the mark, I would say, if that's what their goal specifically is. But if it's just to kind of continue in the same way with like Halo, you know, if they're trying to continue the narrative and kind of add to the lore of the world and keep building, like 5 wasn't, you know, they added a lot of big changes, but some of those changes people hated. People hated that you could sprint all the time, and it just, now it's just Call of Duty. And they hated the fact that you could do this like Spartan boost charge into people and like splash down on top of guys. And so I don't know.
The thing, like if we're comparing it to Halo, like when I played the Halo campaigns, I didn't get the same feeling I did when I played the Gear. Like when I'm playing the Halo campaigns, like I feel like the world isn't tailored for me. Like the world is the world.
You're in a Covenant ship, and this is just how it is.
In whatever.
Right.
But when I'm playing Gears, I feel like the world is tailored for me.
Sure.
And I think that's probably due to the fact that you do need cover, because like the crux of Gears is cover-based shooting, and so like they need to create this cover, and so maybe there's nothing you can do about that. But I think if you're gonna make it focused on the gameplay, then I almost want more options for shooting, more guns, maybe more like some sort of customization, even just like a rudimentary customize. I don't know.
Sure.
Like I feel like they could keep doing the same thing, but I think it's just going to get boring. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just feel like they need to innovate something.
Yeah.
So they almost have to decide who they want to make the game for.
Yep.
And then just run with it. But
yeah, definitely.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm
definitely going to play it because I have the Game Pass. So.
Yeah, nice. I have heard that because they set out the Gears 5 trailer at E3 this year, and
did they?
Oh yeah.
Oh, let's check that out.
Yeah, dude.
See, before we played these games, Gears was never on my radar.
Yeah, no. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "Fudge! I need an Xbox." Like, because the way they're going. So the fifth one they've set up are following two of the characters from Gears 4, and they're two of the characters I really, really like. And I think where they're taking it in terms of the narrative is going to be really fascinating, especially with how deep all the lore we dove into was. There's a lot that this could really, I think from a story side, this game, Gears 5, could really blow open the franchise again to be like, holy fudge, there was a lot of detail to the things going on.
And I think the gaming landscape is different.
Yes.
We've seen that single player campaigns are just busting rewards and records and all that stuff. So like, maybe there's more effort to put on the single player story and experience.
But I think in a franchise that hasn't had a big game recently, like 4 was fine and people bought it who were fans. But I think that's the thing too with the Gears franchise is they do have a diehard fan base. And so I think they will always do well just for the fact that they have a large crew that just, I'm one of them. Like I love,
as long as they do a little bit better than what they did last time.
Exactly.
Like the Gears fans are going to buy it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I have read that the developers have specifically said that they're wanting to make big changes to make the game feel different. So I'm trusting them. Maybe that it includes enemies as well. Like maybe that includes how the combat flows, or like giving, especially from a narrative side, like giving you objectives in the midst of the combat. Because I think that's part of the reason that it's stale. Is it's not just like, oh, I'm like hiding behind cover. Like every other, the Division is like that, or like even playing Anthem, it's like, all right, I'm just jumping in and doing all this stuff. And it's like, it's repetitive. But I think what gives those things life is that there's things in the midst of those repetitive actions that are changing, or like you have to accommodate a goal while doing this repetitive action. And have you mastered the repetitive action enough to be good to accomplish this goal?
Maybe even almost adding like some sort of puzzle. I don't want to say puzzles, but like,
sure, yeah, something
puzzles,
that you have
how
to
puzzles
actively
function
do.
In like Uncharted or The Last of Us or God of War, or
right.
like even having like not an open world but like a pseudo open world, kind of like Metro Exodus is doing now, where like there's the story that it's drawing you along on doing, but like within the midst of that story there's kind of like side things that you can kind of do and traverse, and like it adds a little bit more depth to that single player experience, so it doesn't feel like you're just being pulled along by a string, and the only thing that's hindering you from completing the game
killing all the guys in the room.
Is literally the difficulty. Like, I could just put it on easy and just sit back and plow through the game, and like, yay, I beat it. Like there was nothing hindering me from.
Right.
So
yeah, definitely. So
that's cool that they said they were trying to do something different. So I'm kind of excited.
I trust them. And I think Epic is still making it. So I mean,
that's almost more interesting to me because like, I kind of thought Epic was going to go down like Valve route, and they're like, oh, we struck gold with Fortnite, and now we're starting our own launcher. Like, we don't need to make games anymore. So
right,
like,
but I mean,
just abandon all ships and make billions of dollars with one game. And
that's the thing is, I think like as a result of that may be the exact thing that sets them up. That we're like, we're gonna experiment with the heck out of this game, because really there's no consequence. Like if it bombs, and if they try a bunch of things, and the hardcore Gears fans hate it, well, they're fine.
I'm wondering,
like, it's not
like,
gonna bankrupt them.
Because Microsoft owns Gears of War, right?
That's their IP, correct?
Yeah, but Epic's creating it.
Yes.
But Epic has their own launcher on PC now. But so there's also the Windows Store.
Right.
Because I know the other Gears games I'm pretty sure those are on PC, aren't they?
I think
like on the Windows
I think Gears
Store?
of 1 Remaster and 4, I believe.
Okay, like the ones that are actually like Xbox
I think it's
One
like
games.
the cross-platform or the like shared platform thing or whatever.
So I'm wondering if it'll be on like the Microsoft Store, or if it'll be on like Epic Games, because now like Epic Games is a developer, but they're also like a publisher almost now. Right. Like,
Well, I think they're taking the Steam route where like they're just kind of a host, and they make a cut from people selling games, and it sounds like there's a lot of games that are jumping onto the Epic platform now.
They're actually coming in swinging.
Yeah, which is like good. More competition
for Steam
means better
especially,
quality. That's
sure.
always a good thing. So I'm cool with that. But
interesting.
Any other closing thoughts, or we good to wrap it up?
No, I don't. I mean, I think we've said everything needs to be said. I would definitely recommend if you've got an Xbox, they're backwards compatible on the Xbox One, so you can buy all 3 of them probably for like $15 total.
Yeah,
like $5
actually
a piece.
Check that right now.
And if you have the Game Pass, they're all in there for free. Basically, you just pay like how much ever it is
$10
a year,
a month,
$10 a month, and you can play those 3 games. You can play all the Halo games.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you've got an Xbox, they're like one of the games you should play.
Okay, so Gears of War 3 is $3.99 at GameStop. The remastered edition for Xbox is like $5 used.
Yeah, so it's literally basically free. So I would recommend them for that cost.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like pennies. Like, just don't buy coffee one week. Like, you can basically you can get all the 3 games. I'm trying to. I mean, you can get the triple pack pre-owned at GameStop for like $25. So that's all of them, and that might be expensive. Yeah, Gears 2 and Okay, you can get every single Gears game for about $6 if you have an Xbox One S or a 360. Gears 1 is $1, Gears 2 is $1, and I think I said that 3 was like $3.99 or $4.99.
Yeah.
So you can get them for a little over $5. Yep. Do it. It's well worth it. Yep. And I think we got burned out because we tried to swallow them too quickly.
Do not try and play all 3 in 1 month.
Yeah.
Spread it over a year, maybe.
Yeah. Or even like one game a month or something.
Savor the moment.
Yeah. But to put it in perspective too, like if you play it on easy, which is still entertaining, it's like, if you're trying to like,
casual on the first one does not mean casual.
Oh, it does not. Yeah.
They finally added an easy mode in the second and third ones, but the first one, casual, was not easy.
It was not easy. No, it was not.
That final boss fight, I had to glitch to beat him.
Yeah, that was frustrating. But so it's very accessible. I think that was one of the other reasons we wanted to do an episode about this. Is 5 is coming out in 2019 this year. The first 3 are really easy to get, and they're stupid cheap. And then 4 I've also seen around that's really cheap as well.
I remember, I have the first 3 digitally because I think I bought the gold edition of 4, like the combo pack with the controller. I think I got the game, the controller with the steelbook, and like all 3 games plus all the DLC and everything for 4. I think I got it for like $30.
When did you do
with
that?
The controller? I just found some deal like on Reddit, like people posted it. So I bought it, and I don't have 4 anymore, but I kept like the digital codes and stuff. And,
nice.
So you can get it for dirt cheap. Probably not that cheap, but like it's definitely out there for.
Oh, dude, that controller's sick. The JD Phoenix.
Yeah, I used to have. I sold it, but it was a dope controller.
Yeah.
So they're all dirt cheap, and if you have the Game Pass, they're all on there. So.
I already have 4 controllers, but so much of me wants to get like the red Gears one. It's so tight. Oh my goodness!
I think that's an Elite controller too, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, I want to get an Elite controller eventually.
Not for like an arm and a leg, literally. What feels like it?
Yeah.
Oh, what I really need is an Augustus Cole Funko Pop. All right, sorry, I'm shopping. Anyway, so we'll close out the show. Thanks for tuning in for a Gears of War kind of recap.
Yeah.
We hope you had a fun time. Please definitely let us know if there are games or franchises that you would like us to kind of do a similar thing with. I honestly had more fun, I think, just kind of digging into the lore and challenging myself to find something new about the series than just like,
I enjoyed doing the series. I would rather do it in like 6 months than 1 month.
I agree.
Yeah,
definitely.
But we'll probably do it again.
Yeah, and if
sometime.
I think also Phil and I are going to be kind of changing pace a little bit, so we're not going to be diving into specific episodes as much about specific games, just because learning from this experience, we were like, holy frick, playing this game in a set amount of time and just so we can talk about it is like really fatiguing.
Not economical with our time.
Not economical.
We'll still be playing games, but not like going out of our way to play games we wouldn't have played otherwise.
Correct.
And we'll still be talking about the games we are playing, but not like basing episodes around them, unless it's like we're both playing it and it's like Red Dead Redemption, like that was the thing.
Yep. But, or if there's like 500 people who hit us up on Twitter and like, oh my gosh, talk about this franchise, like okay, like we'll make it work. But until then, you can check out our episodes on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and Spotify. You can follow Phil and I individually on Instagram, Twitter. I was going to read Twitter. All right. You can follow us individually on Instagram and Twitter at I am Phil Sorensen and at JK in Pop Culture. Zach, if you want to follow him, is C San Pellegrino. You can also check out the show's Facebook page, Twitter page, and Instagram page at popculturepunks for all three of those. If you'd like to send us an email of things to talk about or just ideas or opinions that you have on upcoming topics. Give us some recommendations
of stuff we should read or watch.
Yep. Yeah, we chuck ours at you. Like, if there's things that we haven't heard of or stuff that is flying under our radar, like, please, like, we'd love to hear about stuff and, like, talk about it in our recommendations and, like, get a recommendation from you and then recommend it to other people as well.
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear from you. You can send those things to our show Twitter at popculturepunks or our show email, which is popculturepunks@gmail.com. Lastly, we've got a Redbubble and Threadless store, so if you feel like helping us out with the show and getting a shirt or a mug or whatever, we get a little kickback from that. If there's any designs or things that you'd like to see, definitely let me know. I love making stuff. I've got a few opportunities to design some shirts down the road for us. So I'd love to add any that people are interested in. Next week starts the month of love. So the show's gonna be a little different starting next week for the month of February. So just kind of give you a lay of the land of what all of February is gonna look like, and then each week individually we'll kind of share out what those individual weeks will look like. So next week we're talking down with Philip's brother-in-law, Isaac, who is producing under the artist name Orchid Whales. And we talked about his album that he just finished and shared last year, I think.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah, so I had a song pop up on my shuffle the other day. I was like, man, like, I'm jamming. So I'm excited to talk music. So we'll be talking music, what we love about music, and stuff like that. So the theme for February is kind of like what we love and just like nostalgia and stuff like that.
And love.
The second week of February, so February 11th, we're going to be talking about browser games. So all those Puff games, Mini Clip, all those Club Penguin, Neopets, a little RuneScape in there.
Yep.
We're going to be just kind of remembering all the ridiculousness that were those and talking about our love of the olden days when we had to play games in our browsers before we had consoles and things like that. The 18th is going to be kind of interesting because we've never done this before, and Zach isn't here, so he can't gripe about it. So we're going to be doing a wives episode. So we're going to have Gloria and Evan join us on the show for like I don't even know what we're gonna do. I think joke around and laugh. So that'll be
we'll
one.
Grill them.
Yeah,
what's my favorite movie? What's my favorite TV show?
I don't know. So it'll be a good time. I'm excited. That'll be a lot of fun. Just kind of joke around and laugh. And then last but not least, the last episode of the month on the 25th, we will also be doing a 360 themed episode to just talk about the 360 era. We'll probably be going through a lot of the similar information that we had with like the Gears of War, just kind of looking at the landscape of like what was the system like, what were the other consoles competing with it, and just what we loved.
Just talking about that nostalgia.
That nostalgia, my civility,
my nostalgia,
my nostalgia. So that's what the month of February is looking like. Tune in next week for a music discussion with Isaac of Orchid Whales. And until then, we bid you a pop culture
Marcus Phoenix Gears of War chainsaw fueled cowabunga.
Job security.